Throughout his career, Moshe Dayan drew inspiration from the struggles and triumphs described in the Bible. Often, he would visit ancient battlegrounds in search of practical lessons for modern Israel's survival. Here, in the Valley of Elah, according to the Old Testament, the army of King Saul did battle with the Philistines. Here, in this valley, David killed Goliath.
I think it's important for all countries, like ourselves, to look for a special way, a special tactics, by which they can overcome the enemy and win the war, although they are weaker in weapon and with their forces. And I think really that what happened during the war that we had with the Arabs, that always had bigger forces than we had, was about this point, that we always looked for a special way to be smarter, to fight against them, not the way that they expected us to fight, just like Goliath had to fight David, not the way that Goliath, expected David to fight against him.
By 1967, the Israelis would face a formidable new Goliath. Egypt had rearmed, threatening vengeance. Responding to intense public pressure, the Israeli government appointed Moshe Dayan Minister of Defense. Dayan and Chief of Staff Yitzhak Rabin were convinced that an all-out Arab offensive was imminent. Israel struck first. Seizing the initiative, the Israeli Air Force unleashed its full fury. In 6 devastating hours, they destroyed 300 planes in Egypt's 400-plane Air Force, many while they were still on the ground. With control of the skies assured, the Israelis held a decisive advantage. Israeli armor swept through the Sinai Desert, wreaking havoc on the Egyptian army. When Jordan entered the war on the second day, Dayan's Israeli forces launched an offensive to capture the old city of Jerusalem, the holiest place in the Jewish faith. After intense fighting, the prize lay within their grasp. On the third day of the war, Israel's battle-hardened troops marched triumphantly into the old city of Jerusalem. At the Wailing Wall, the western wall of the ancient temple, they gave prayers of thanks. Dayan, accompanied by Chief of Staff Rabin, arrived only minutes after the area had been secured. Once again, Dayan was an international celebrity. Following ancient Jewish tradition, the soldiers had left prayers in the wall on scraps of paper. Dayan, too, left his prayer, a hope for peace. In the 6-day war, Israel would triumph on 3 fronts, capturing the Sinai, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. But in the euphoria of victory, Moshe Dayan did not forget the vanquished. He would make a goodwill gesture towards the defeated Arabs, which many Israelis would view as a dangerous gamble. Dayan would permit all Arabs to move freely between Jordan and Israel without visas or security checkpoints.
Everybody was against it, and had I not had this authority to do it, it wouldn't have been done, because they said, just imagine when 200,000 refugees will go to the places which used to be their land and home and see that now it's being inhabited by Israelis. Can you imagine what their feeling would be and their attitude? And next thing, everyone coming to work to Israel will bring with him in his basket and hand grenade. And I didn't think so. And I just gave an order, open all the borders, all the barriers, nothing, no checkpost, nothing. Any Arab who wants to go anywhere in Israel, let him go.
But gestures of goodwill meant little to the Arabs, still stung by the humiliation of their swift defeat in the Six-Day War. With their weapons destroyed by the Israelis, the Egyptians set out to rearm with a vengeance. By 1973, Anwar Sadat, the new president of Egypt, had signed an arms agreement with the Soviets for a formidable arsenal of new weaponry. The Israelis, however, were not intimidated by the ominous news. With Moshe Dayan as their Minister of Defense, under Prime Minister Golda Meir, they felt secure. Yom Kippur, October 6, 1973, holiest of Jewish holidays. An entire nation was at prayer. Suddenly, using Dayan's own tactics of deception and surprise, the Arabs struck hard. For Israel, this Day of Atonement would be a day of reckoning. Bloodied and reeling from the Arabs' 1973 Yom Kippur offensive, the Israelis fought back. Somehow, they sought to snatch victory out of defeat. In 2 ferocious weeks, the war was over. Israel had prevailed, but at a terrible cost. 2,500 Israeli lives. In the aftermath, even as the dead were being laid to rest, the Israelis felt a gnawing suspicion that somehow their leaders had betrayed them. Demonstrators took to the streets to voice their anger. Dayan, once praised for his vision, was now accused of negligence. Dayan, the hero, would be blamed for leaving Israel unprepared for the Arab surprise attack. While defending Moshe Dayan, Prime Minister Golda Meir would suffer a firestorm of criticism herself.
Everybody praised during the war the strong spirit of the Prime Minister, the late Mrs. Meir, and I think very much of her. I admire her. Still, you know that she thought about committing suicide, Mrs. Meir. It never occurred to me, absolutely never occurred to me. My spirit was never broken.
In response to the public outcry, a government commission was established to investigate the charges against the army leadership. When the verdict came in, Dayan's position was sustained. While some in the military would judge negligent, Dayan would be cleared of all charges.
I'm so sure that I was right and behaved right, absolutely sure. Not only because they committed it, inquired about it, found that there was nothing wrong with my attitude, but with my own feeling. I'm at peace with myself about that. I can look straight into the face of a mother who will tell you, you murdered my son. Of course, there were some mistakes, but we won the war within a short time, and we managed within days to rebalance ourselves. And this was, I think, our greatest victory, the war of Yom Kippur, though we had heavy losses.